So our first question is on enzymes and IBS from Ken, and he says, Rob, talk to us about enzymes. I've played with a lot of different things over the years to help with IBS issues, and for a long time I was devoted to probiotics, but I never found any real consistent results with them. I took a stool test a year or so ago and discovered that literally none of the strains of probiotics I had so diligently taken and paid for were significantly present. Along the way, antifungals and anti-parasitic medication doctor prescribed helped calm the fire down below, but it was enzymes that seemed to have made the final difference for me. Not only is the fire largely out, I've really not had to keep up with taking enzymes like I did with probiotics. To be fair to probiotics, they seem to help in the moment, but I get the sense you have to take them daily, which does not seem to be the case with enzymes. I should mention I know several people that have had the same experience with probiotics and enzymes, and my question is, what is the mechanism at work? I get that enzymes help break down foods, but why would that help with IBS symptoms? And furthermore, why would those symptoms be largely gone after only 6 months or so of using them, but not taking them even daily?
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff. When I was at the UCSF conference that Akil Palanisamy puts on each year, really amazing event. Dr. Dadis Karazian was there, and this guy is so smart. Cairo, and also a PhD in immunology, I think from Harvard. So kind of DC PhD guy. And he's a real legit gut health expert and really on the kind of how do you fix things clinically. And he did an amazing breakdown of this whole story. And he relies heavily on things like betaine hydrochloride, apple cider vinegar, which I've shifted to using capsules because when I would do the apple cider vinegar shots, it was dissolving my teeth, which it has a tendency to do, and butyrate. And so what's going on that in kind of a multifactorial story is that the enzymes in improving the acid content of the stomach while you're eating food, if you break everything down into its constituent parts, and we're really concerned about the proteins in this story, and proteins, whether it's from animal sources or plant sources, if they hit the gut lining as a single amino acids or dipeptides, which is about the ideal scenario, there's really not immunogenic substance then. There's not the problematic proteins that can irritate the gut and cause the motility issues that kind of typify IBS. And then he recommended the butyrate because the butyrate tends to help fix the gap junction issues within the gut in kind of a primary and direct fashion. So in a healthy gut, assuming that an individual's eating some fermentable fiber and all that type of stuff, we get butyrate and propionate and malonate and these different short chain fats that improve gap junction function. And then in theory, a healthy gut, people are robustly digesting all of their food, including the proteins and also the carbohydrates that should be digested early in the process versus, if we have poor digestion, those carbohydrates can make their way intact into later portions of the digestion, which is kind of where SIBO and all that stuff pops up. So that's kind of the mechanism there, and it makes a lot of sense. And what's interesting about that, it's a little bit reminiscent. The gut health topic and the microbiome topic is really interesting. I think we've talked about this a couple of times before, but clearly the gut microbiome and gut health is critical. But we don't really know yet, I think in general, what to do about it. Like about 50%, most of the studies you look at, Dr. Ruscio has talked about this, 100 people take a probiotic formula, about half the people show improvements, half the people don't, some of the don'ts actually get worse. So it's very hit and miss in that regard. And also the probiotics generally are not intended to be repopulating the gut. They're actually intended to kind of tune the immune system, although some work from the Sonnenberg lab suggests that the process of putting these gut microbes from probiotics through the system actually creates a more amenable environment for you to get other organisms from the environment that should be taking up residence there. And really interesting stuff. But the point being that if we look at people who've had different forms of ileostomies, like basically having their their intestines to varying degrees removed, these people don't live shorter, worser lives than people with all of that real estate. And this is despite whatever injury or illness caused that scenario. So on the one hand, clearly the gut microbiome and gut health is really important, but it seems, in my mind, my kind of take on this is it's really, really important to either function well, or if pathology has occurred, then we need to somehow address the pathology, because clearly just removing that real estate, like, it makes all the notion of like, well, fiber is critical to health and all the stuff. It really kind of casts a interesting light on it. So in the scenario of really augmenting frontal digestion with enzymes and potentially like, again, apple cider vinegar, some other acid sources, that would appear to really fix a lot of problems, because we're breaking the food down and there isn't the large proteins that are potentially immunogenically, stimulating. So that's what's going on both on the probiotic side and most likely on the enzyme side. It is intriguing to me that you could get by with this with intermittent use instead of like needing to be really consistent. But also, even though the IBS had gone on apparently for some significant period of time, he maybe only needs to kind of pulse that whole process, because it is interesting too. Once the gut heals, then like cholecystokinin release is more normalized, and acid secretions are more normalized. We know that H. pylori suppresses acid production, ironically, even though it's associated with peptic ulcers, but it tends to suppress acid production in the stomach to foster a more amenable environment for the H. pylori. So sometimes if we move out if we change the gut microbiome in a favorable way, then it just actually gets a little bit of a feed forward mechanism going, and it just generally functions better. So, yeah.